Okay. Once again, before we get started, we are talking about the journey of righteousness, or the journey in truth and understanding who we are, and we are looking at Abraham, the journey that he took, and we're saying that this is a journey that we've all embarked on, and these places that he walks in, the things that he does, it is him recognizing truth, him coming to a new place of awareness inside of himself, him coming in touch with the rhythms and the vibrations of the universe that is in him. So he's walking away from religion. He's walking away from sin. And I went into that to talk about the city, Ur and Haran, worshiping a moon god called sin. So he's walking away from everything that does not lead to truth. And the walk is as he embarks on this journey, leads him closer to who he is, and also to who the Creator is, the oneness that he is with the Creator. So it took us to chapter 17, and we're talking about the covenant that God establishes with Abraham. And right here, we'll stop and see if we have any questions and/or comments. Okay.
Ron, the question was asked about circumcision yesterday. Are we there yet?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I was reflecting on what was said yesterday by several people. You, I think Amir, Mary, I believe. Anyway, the question was asked once you talked about circumcision and the fact that this is a sign of the covenant in a sense between the Creator and Abram, that Yeshua would be his God, and that they would serve Yeshua, and that God would bring them into this promised land, into Canaan. And so the question was asked about why was the man circumcised and not the woman, I believe. I don't remember who quite asked that. And I think it was Mary or someone who talked about woman being the nourisher and having a lot of a more spiritual propensity. Amir talked about, I believe, and Amir, forgive me, but I am just trying to say it the way I heard you in my vernacular. You talked about the man representing the physical and the woman representing the spiritual. And I wanted to just delve into that just for a minute, because I think it's an important part of our journey and where we are. If you will remember, when the Adam was placed in the garden, or was in the garden, or east of Eve, it was androgynous, meaning it had characteristics of both the feminine and masculine energies. And these attributes worked as one because the entity perceived itself as one. And this is the time when the atom vibrated at such a high frequency that it vibrated with creation, meaning at the time that it began to name the entities or the animals or the life forms, etc. He didn't have to think about it because they vibrated at the same levels that the life form's vibration called out its name, in a sense, vibrated its name to Adam. And Adam was able to say, this is this. This is a rock. This is a tree. This is a fish. This whatever. Because there was oneness. And so everything resonated its name and was named. But later after the Adam was supposedly separated into the Adam and Eve, the Adam representing the masculine energy and the Eve its feminine aspect. Because remember, they're one. They're one. Adam called the woman woman, womb man. The B later was not in there, but man with a womb. That's what it meant, because this was the feminine aspect of the Adam. So is everybody with me so far? Okay, yeah. I'm going to move on. Okay, thank you. So when you talk about the oneness of the masculine and feminine energy, I wanted to go back to when they were androgynous. That it was androgynous, but later as it slept, the perception that they separated was because of the fall, and then subsequently the naming of one womb man, woman with a womb. I'm sorry, man with a womb. Okay, I'm going somewhere with it, so stick with me just a minute more. In the physical plane, Ron, I think you talked about man and how the phallic symbol of man is a physical representation of, the creation projecting into the physical realm. And I think it was, and the reproductive organ is that physical symbol of birth or creation into the physical realm. And then Amir talked about the woman being, from the spiritual perspective, and I thought about that, and I tended to agree with him. The woman represented that hidden spiritual aspect. The womb is that part of the Adam. They're all one, guys. When we know the truth that it's all one, but the appearance and the physical was separateness, and so the woman then with the womb represented that spiritual aspect that's not seen as readily as the man and its reproductive organ. So there was no need to circumcise a woman because they are one. As perceived separate entities, their roles were a little different in that men have both masculine and feminine energy. Women have both masculine and feminine energy. Men present the masculine more so, and the feminine presents the feminine energy more so. And so it's almost like it's a beautiful pictorial of the physical and the spiritual. If you remember, in the womb, what's in the womb, and I'm not talking about all this high-tech stuff that now can show you what's in the womb. Once the sperm and the egg start multiplying, what's in the womb grows hidden in the womb, in the darkness of the womb. And as it readies for birth, the birth is then what's seen, presented in the physical. But again, remember, you can't separate the fact that these two were one entity and are one entity spiritually. And so when the man was physically circumcised, well, technically the woman was too, because they're one, if you follow what I'm saying. Their functions were a little different, but they were still one. I had one other thought that's fleeting away. But what I'll do right now is stop and see if there are any questions.
I have a comment. Well said, and thank you very much. And also about coming out of the darkness of the womb. I think that's why Judaism, Islam, and the Baha'i faith start their days at evening and go into the morning, where you come from darkness and you move into light. And so, yes, that all ties in. It's all part of the one reality. But thank you very much.
Thank you for the comment.
Barbara?
Yes, sir.
I see what you're saying. I agree wholeheartedly. I see that there's a foreshadowing of something too. But let me wait until you finish before I get into that, okay?
Okay. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, I have a comment too, and I don't know if I'm going the same place Pastor is. Let me add this part onto what you're saying, though, if you don't mind, if I do that at this time.
Of course I mind. No, of course not.
I looked up the word covenant, and I kept tracing it back and trying to figure out to what this meant. In some instances, covenants were agreed upon with blood. There had to be bloodshed with the covenant. And an example of that would be, let's say that Bobby, your family and mine are bordered on a piece of land, and we agreed to share that land, and you could do what you wanted with it, and I could do what I wanted with it. Well, that agreement is between us as we live, so there need not be a blood covenant. But if it is to carry on beyond us and beyond generation and generation, it was sometime marked by a blood covenant. Now, with this one, this was marked with a blood covenant because it was a reminder for generations to come what was to take place. So when they were circumcised in that 8th day, they were reminded of this covenant that they had with the Creator. So it was that strong symbolic reason, a part of the reason it was done. And as Pastor just said, it was symbolic of other things to come. Now, on the practical side, and we also know that it was because of cleanliness and purification. And that was so. But also with the female, though, and this has nothing to do, at least I don't see anything to do with the covenant. I agree with you. They were one, and the female did not have to shed blood. But I am to just want to remind us that the female body purifies itself by shedding of blood. So in a way that there is a purification that goes on continuously. And if you look at the fact that they are one, this circumcision happens once with the male, but it continues with them as they grow into being one. So if you look at this as a holy thing, I hope that makes sense, and I'll stop there as well.
Thank you, Ron. That walks me into the point that was pleading initially. It is absolutely necessary that we understand that the masculine and the feminine are one. That they are only whole when they are one. And I'm not talking about a man and a woman from the physical aspect. I'm talking about spiritually. The masculine and the feminine energies are one. If you remember, it was only when we when Pastor started teaching about this oneness of it, that we began to even see things from a spiritual perspective much more fully. And so when we understand this and we see this as the oneness that it is, we are able to apprehend spiritual things to their fullest in a much more fulfilling, much more broader, resonating manner, if that resonates.
It does.
Okay, if
This
there are
is
no other
Audrey.
comments and questions,
I have a comment. This is Audrey. Something that just struck me while you were talking, Bart, and it just resonated. I have no evidence, no scriptural reference, nothing. But the thing that just resonated with me while you were talking was that maybe this male circumcision is also, in addition to being all the things we've said, maybe it was also a way for the Creator to remind the male that he is one with the female. And I don't have any more I can say about it. It just resonates with me.
I will give you the scripture. What you just said is exactly where I was headed. The word circumcised comes from a word that means, has a root rather, to cut away. And when we look at what is said here, it's talking about the cutting away of the flesh. And it is a reminder, a symbol, which is a reminder of the covenant. And on the 8th day, because 8 speaks to a renewal or the ability to rise above what's in your past. And if we look at the word circumcised beyond this particular chapter and see it in Deuteronomy, I think it's the 10th chapter, but it appears somewhere in Jeremiah. It talks about the circumcision of the heart. And when we talk about the heart from the Hebraic perspective, we're not talking about a fleshy heart, neither are we limiting it to the emotion. The heart speaks of all of your thoughts and the direction of your thoughts, the purpose of your thinking, and how you act on those thoughts. So when it talks about circumcising the heart, it's talking about cutting away all of those things that is between us and the reality of our oneness with our Creator. However, it speaks more to the oneness of the male and female, or the masculine and feminine energy. It's a reminder to the male more than the female, because it's a foreshadowing of the way that males think. Males think to this day that they are superior to females because of brute strength, and they manipulate the scriptures into saying that males are the head of the household. They manipulate the scriptures to say that men are the ones who to make the final decisions in a household. They manipulate the scriptures that guide us away from a sense of unicity with the female and separates us on the basis of male authority. Circumcision of the heart gets rid of all of that. It frees that man from feeling as though he is superior to another man, or more importantly, to females. It frees him from any male who is not free from that. His heart has not been circumcised. And once the heart is circumcised, he's constantly reminded that he and the female, the feminine masculine energy are one, and neither one is superior to the other. However, both have a role to play in Earth's consciousness, but more importantly, in spiritual consciousness. The man or the woman who does not embrace the reality of circumcision in a spiritual sense will always be blind to what the truth really is. A woman who is submissive to a man in that manner will be blind to the truth of what the truth is, and a man who is dominating to a woman, domineering over a woman is the man who will never see what light really is. This is a joint journey, and just as the journey through the garden was the unicity of the entity God.
Did we lose him?
We did. I'm reconnecting now.
Right at the crucial moment.
I know, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. It's not your fault.
Because what happens is when you circumcise a woman, you end up destroying that relationship of the oneness, such that the woman may not even be able to do what it is she does, and that is to actually birth what the male has provided to her, actually birth into creation a child. But when the woman is circumcised in many lands, the womb may be such that she cannot even birth, and so, give birth to a child. And so that speaks to, I think, what you talked about yesterday too, Arnie.
Yes, we lost y'all for a few minutes. So we're catching up.
What part did you lose on? Did you hear Pastor's explanation?
When Pastor was talking, right when he was saying about the circumcision of the heart and how that's how when men's hearts are circumcised, they lose all the feeling of male patriarchy, that kind of thing.
Pastor, do you mind?
No, not at all. I was saying that until the heart of the male is circumcised, he will never see enlightenment or be able to embrace the light of what truth is, and until the female ceases to submit to that kind of antithetical authority of a male, or sees herself as being inferior to a male, she will never be able to see enlightenment as well. She has to come to grips with the reality that they are one, as opposed to being a team. A team means that you can be on anyone's team you choose to. However, when you're one, there is no separation there at all. And this is the physical things that we engage in are actually images of what our spiritual understandings are. So men who are dominant over women have no spiritual understanding at all. They simply have an acceptance of a religious principle that has no foundation in the universe whatsoever. And women who submit to that are actually are walking away from the reality of who they were created to be. Why do I say that? I say that because nothing can be birthed without feminine energy. Nothing can be brought forth in this earth without a womb. And until we embrace the reality that both of us have a role and neither one of us are superior over the other, until that happens, then we will be in this state of chaos forevermore. I think that recaps pretty much what I said.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Barbara, did you want to finish up what you were saying?
Oh, I think I'm finished. I was saying, though, the fact that it was only when Pastor started teaching about feminine and masculine and feminine energy, and the fact that neither is greater than the other, that they are one, that this is the time that we began to see our spiritual understanding begin to expand, and that's what the pastor just said. The spiritual circumcision of the heart does. It brings us back into vibration, if you will, resonance, if you will, of the oneness of masculine and feminine. But then it expands us and lets us understand that the oneness is not just masculine and feminine energies, it's the oneness of everything in the universe as it relates to the Creator.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is the reason there is so much chaos right now, is because that policy that principle of the kingdom is not being acknowledged. As a matter of fact, the only time that principle of the kingdom is acknowledged is in lip service. However, but is not acknowledged in those places that claim to be spiritual, or in the midst of those religions that claim to know the truth. One of the worst things that can ever happen to humanity is for the maleness to be disrespectful to that of the female, because this disrespecting the female energy or manifesting disrespect in the physical is a way of saying that you don't respect the origin of your birth. You don't respect the origin of life itself. It is also saying that you have such low esteem and such infantile knowledge of yourself until you feel like you need to dominate someone else to make you feel good about yourself. I'm done.
Thank you, Audrey. Does that resonate with you? Or take kind of agree with where you were going?
Yeah,
do
of
you
course.
see more?
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Is there anyone else who has a comment on that or questions?
I believe that the conversation is so important, because it's a reminder that all of this physical stuff, all of this stuff you're seeing in the physical, about abortion, voting rights, whatever it is, whatever is divisive that's going on, this conversation is important that it be put in the macro to remind everyone that we are not enemies. We are each other's keeper, because we are each other. Ron, as you said yesterday, you know what? You don't know where the conversation is going, but it's the questions that drive it, and it's the questions that the Creator put in and the comments that the Creator puts in everyone's minds that lead to, and that seed, if you will, the thought that needs to be put in the macro.
Now, I'm sorry, Pastor, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ron.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to say, when I was listening to a commentator the other day in regards to the abortion issue, and it triggered when Barbara said that. It is funny how the religious sector can say that a woman does not have a right to make a decision about her body. However, when it comes to the vaccine, it says that the government has no right to pass to make any mandates about it, but they look to the government to make mandates about a woman's body. These are the type of arguments that have no validity that men are making in the land, and women are buying into it. Have been buying into it up until this point, where now it's getting a bit difficult for them to do that. As a matter of fact, I do not think for a moment that any male, especially a politician, wanted the Supreme Court to do what they did, because now they are forced to make some real decisions about how they're going to handle this. And it may seem like it's not related to what we are talking about, but it really is. We have put so many things on our Creator that the Creator has nothing to do with, has left in our hands. For example, there is absolutely nothing in the Scripture that mandates that someone should be punished for having an abortion. Not one thing. And if you read the history of how that came about, you will see it came about in search of an issue that would galvanize the evangelical church around an issue that would allow it to be influence politics itself. And what happened as a result of that, all religions began to buy into the same lie and lies about these principles. If you look further into it, you will find that limitations, the scriptures are used to place limitations on females and not males. You will see that everything, not in just the American society, but in the societies around the world, are geared towards putting boundaries around what females can do and say, but never around the male. And this is based on brute strength, which means that the reason that we have not learned how to be humans is because men have been in charge. And men being in charge has shown us the animalistic nature of our being by virtue of the wars that we engage in and the brutality that we make every effort to use to justify. I'm done.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment. It's Mary. Good morning.
Mary.
So when I got off the phone yesterday, I was thinking, man, I shouldn't have asked that question, because even though I heard what you said, Ron, I heard it clearly, but I was thinking, I took it somewhere else, and that was not my intention. And I really kind of debated in my mind what was going on, and I told Evelyn about it. She said, you're too hard on yourself. But anyway, hearing the discussion this morning tells me to understand that is, questions that come to your mind. The Creator's putting it there to throw it out so that we can talk about it and get a clear understanding of what's going on. So I really appreciate, Barbara, what you said, Pastor, and Ron. Because it resonates with me on just understanding who we are, the Creator, and how we are one. Male and female are one. And the circumcising of the flesh. I remember that. I remember all of that stuff, so it's bringing it back to mind. I'm saying that to say this to you teachers and the pastor. Thank y'all so much. And for others who may be on the line and have question that you think doesn't make sense or is irrelevant, it's good to ask because you'll be surprised. I was surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised every time when I bring up a topic or a subject and you guys thoroughly examine it and bring it out. So thank you, dissect it, and thank you so much for your openness and accepting me and my questions. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
You're welcome, Mary. And I think, and everybody can speak to this, but I think, speak for everyone, the pastor, the teachers, and everyone else on the line, for you and your questions. We love the questions. As Barbara said a few minutes ago, it's what drives the lessons. And I mentioned to Barbara on yesterday, I'm still, at some point, when somebody says, I got a question, there's still a part of me that cringes a little bit, but I'm confident that someone will have an answer. And if not, even like yesterday, the questions came forth, and we're still working on them. What's the first thing Barbara said? I went home and thought about this, and came back and I thought about it as well. So we love this. We take it to heart, and the questions are everything. If we're talking about putting things in the macro, we want it to be clear. And the goal is always the same: love, peace, harmony, and forgiveness. So bringing clarity on the lines, I think, helps accomplish that. And anybody else want to address that, please do.
This is Amir. In the past, they called us the Socratic Method, which is the way Socrates approached things was through questioning. He called himself a midwife, that he would help to bring birth of ideas and thoughts into people's minds just by asking a question. So it's a part of this whole mystery and process of male, female, birth, death. All of this is a part of the reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Just want to say one thing, Amir, excuse me, let me just respond to what Amir said and then I'll get off. Amir, we learned that was what Socrates said, but now we know Socrates wasn't the creator of that. It went back further than that to spiritual things, and you are the Socrates now. Now that you know who you are, now that I know who I am, we are the Socrates. Let me say that. We are not the Socrates. We are Elohim.
Amen. Thank you, sister.
Good morning, everyone. And in everything that you all have stated, some have said that we all are one. And I favor that. As an individual, I favor maneuvering collectively. And when you maneuver collectively, as it relates to the masculine form of energy and the feminine form of energy, when you maneuver collectively in a task, number one, it strengthens relationships, or relationship, with yourself and with the other participants. It's somewhat plausible you may morph into where you love people unconditionally. So I favor maneuvering collectively. And if you look at the people who I roll with, at 50 years of age, I'm the baby in the group. The next one to me is 63. And I choose to maneuver with them because they are more closer to the original than I am. And I can learn from them. I kind of stay real close to Mr. Charles, just in terms of age. He's more closer to the original than I am. He comes out of an era where It ain't on your mark, get set, go. You got to be able to go at any given time. He comes out of an era where it's bigger than you. So when we maneuver collectively, that incorporates masculine energy, feminine energy. Like I say, I'm not for that individualism stuff. But just by maneuvering collectively, this whole thing of dominating, males dominate, females dominate, and both of them are out of balance. Just maneuver collectively of it's bigger than you. The era that I'm in, I don't think Joe Jackson is the closest person outside of my trucking family that I deal with. After Joe, maybe two more years. But it's just the thing of it's bigger than you. Everyone may not be on the same rhythm or cadence, yet everyone's contributing. In my own household, if you make a decision without me, you live with those consequences. If I make a decision without Monique, I have to live with those consequences. If the consequences are good, I'm going to live with it. If the consequences are not so good, I'm going to live with it. And I expect the same of others. You made that decision without me? That's on your watch. So I just favor maneuvering collectively, you all, because it incorporates both energies, the masculine side, the feminine side. On the question that the young lady asked yesterday of males have to be a constant reminder. That's a true statement. Females ain't got to be a constant reminder because you all are more, this is opinionated. You all are more of an extension of God. Only way a child of God can come to this earth is by way of a female. So that's a constant reminder to me that not to dominate a conversation.
I have a question.
That's it.
No, I have a question. If that is true, the only way a God can come to this earth is through a female, then why is it that males are so disrespectful to the channel through which God enters the earth?
Oh, well, that's an easy question for me to answer. Are you asking me or are you asking us?
No, I'm throwing it out there, and the reason I'm doing that is because what we're dealing with is far greater than my individual household. We're talking about mankind, period. We're not talking about when we talk about individuals, we're talking about individuals who feel as though they are right simply because of their religious beliefs. When we talk collectively, talk as individuals in terms of all of us being one, we are talking about the message that the universe has given us from the beginning. However, I've heard what you said before, many times before, that without the female, there's no life in the earth. Without the female, no God is birthed into the earth. So I thrown it out there, not just to George individually, but as a thought. Why is it that if we truly believe that males are so disrespectful to the channel through which God enters the earth, why is it that the only method to bring life into this physical earth is so disrespected, disregarded as being something important or seen as a thing or a source of pleasure, someone to be dominated and relegated to a minimum and relegated to a secondary role in our lives? That's all.
Well, Reverend Richard, the answer.
I'm not asking you personally.
What's that, Reverend?
I said I'm not raising that to you personally. However, if you feel like you want to respond to that, that's fine.
Well, I didn't take it as personal, Reverend Richard. I just took it as a question. That's it. my contention and my belief is when you don't know who you are and the person or group of people that's envious or jealous of you or whatever is in between that, if you start mirroring what's envious and jealous of you, the person or the group that's envious or jealous of you will gain ground on you, and you will take on more of their traits. What I'm saying in essence is, as an African American male, I done took on the traits of the European male. And females that are African American, y'all done took on the traits of the European female. So when you don't know who you are, you're trying to figure yourself out here in this here game. Not game, the gauntlet of life or the maze of life. The group that is envious of us, the European. We end up mirroring them, and they end up gaining ground on us. With the African American female, from which I heard this from my mother, the African American female had so much influence that it made the European female who had access to a lot of money go get their lips bigger for more definition. They want to be like us. Or they want the European woman, Shea, Brooke Shields, Sally Jesse Raphael, Joan River.
George, well, back up, please. You're getting into cultural things that has no bearing in the scriptures at all. Let me explain why. The idea, the same principle that's involved in teaching people to dislike each other because of the color of their skin is also the principle that's involved when this country teaches us that the Chinese or the Russians are bad people. The idea of engaging into cultural differences and feeling as though someone is making an effort to catch up with us is another way of saying that we are superior to someone, and we are not. People who don't know who they are always seek to mimic who they think they are, no differently than a female who puts a hot comb in her hair. No different, an African female who straightens her hair. Brooke Shields getting collagen in her lips is no different than a woman who sits in a beauty parlor and gets a beauty salon and gets her hair straightened. So this is this is bigger than that. This is more important and more meaningful and more spiritual than a hot iron in somebody's head or a needle in somebody's lips. So if we are to be the exhibitors of loving kindness, forgiveness, and mercy, and be the progenitors of balance in this earth realm, it is imperative that we look beyond the physical attributes that have been defined as the norms for everyone. Whatever a person chooses to do with their physical body, that's their own consequence or reward. What am I saying? If you decide that you want to put a tattoo on your body, that's you. However, it does not have an adverse effect on the rest of the world. What has an adverse effect on humanity is the way that is our lack of perception as to who we are. The divinity of our being is where we lose our sense of bearing. If we look at the original understanding of what education was geared toward, it was not geared toward pointing out racial differences. Neither was it geared toward having someone to be intellectually stronger than someone else. The foundational reason for education was to teach mankind about its divinity. The origin of education was in the Kushite kingdom, And without it, there would not have been any hieroglyphics in Egypt, because that's where written language came from. So if you want to understand what's important, we have to go back to the origin. And the origin of what's most important is for humanity, without regard to a geographical location or ethnic origin, for humanity to understand that it is deity in the earth. That's it, period. All these other things are simply distractions that keeps us on this chaotic journey for a longer period of time. And I hope that resonates with you. Thank you.
Okay, Pastor. This is Renia, and you'd asked about thoughts on what you said. And the thing that occurred to me was, because we don't think of ourselves as together. We think of ourselves as separately there are women and separately there are men. And because if you take that point of view, women control birth, in essence. I mean, to someone who says you're not one with me, they see me as the woman who can decide if she wants to have a child or not, or that sort of thing. And it then becomes about control, because you aren't part of me. You're someone who can do something I can't, and I want to control that. And that's just the thing that occurs to me in the physical, what's going on, and healing that in the spiritual so that we aren't separate, then heals that sense that I need to control this aspect of this person,
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments, guys, on that along those lines? I have something I want to show us. And someone have a question?
Well, I do. I have more of a comment, and this is Ramel. I really appreciate George for having those questions, and for Sage bringing clarity. It kind of helped me, having listened to Miss Barbara and you speak today, Ron. I was a little feeling a little lost. It seems like I was just grabbing bits and pieces, or it was resonating in me in bits and pieces. And I know I don't have to have it all at one time, but Sage really helped me clarify the things George was saying, is those are things we go through personally, but it's not what impacts the world. And I really appreciate that, because that helped me put things out of a messy order into a neater order and understanding. And I just want y'all to know I really appreciate the discussion.
You are welcome. But at any time and at all times, we'll stay on the subject until we're comfortable that everyone sees it, understands it. That's never a problem. In fact, that is more of a pleasure than moving on. I would rather cover one verse than the whole Bible. You cover the whole Bible and nobody gets it. What have you done? You wasted your time. So if there's ever anything here, even if it's something we covered 3 weeks ago, if you have a question about it, let's see if we can bring clarity. Because our belief is too, and I think again I speak for pastor and the teachers, is the question may come to you, but it's a universal question that came to you because others need the answer. So look at it from that perspective as well. And please feel free to ask anything at any time.
Okay.
Are you good with what has been said so far today? You're okay?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Okay. What I was going to bring up today, I want to look at some scripture again, talking about oneness, and it also points to how scripture is manipulated to mean something that it doesn't. And I want to talk about this. I'm gonna read in verse 17. In chapter 17, the verses 15 through, I guess, 19. Then I'll go to chapter 18 and read, start at verse 10 and read. And what I want to do is look at where Abraham laughed when God was speaking to him and where Sarah laughed and what that has been interpreted to mean, and we'll see if we can glean a truer meaning from this and help bring clarity as we're talking about oneness and uniqueness and in the individual that becomes one with Elohim, and how truth is uncovered from that union, and that truth is what brings about fresh life. And in this, that fresh life was demonstrated from Isaac, but in us,
Did we lose connection again?
Yeah, I think so. Are you there, Janice? Can you get it back?
Yeah, it'll be just a second.
Thanks.
in advance that Sarah was past childbearing. And Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I have become old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I indeed bear a child when I am so old? Is anything too difficult for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you at this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. Sarah denied it, however, saying that I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, no, but you did laugh. Now, as we have heard, at least in churches, that emphasis is put on her as being have sinned to laugh. Nothing has ever been said of Abraham's laughter here. We are looking at this in response to the oneness and the being balanced. What do you see here? What do you see as taking place here?
Well, Ron, whenever you hear that word tent, T-E-N-T, and this is a seminary answer, I don't know how accurate it is, it means a degree of separation. When Moses pitched his tent outside of the village, he put it outside the village. For those that want to roll with them, you come with me. For those that don't want to roll, stay where you are. So that word tent, from my little investigation, in it there is some degree of separation. So the laugh of Sarah or the chuckle of Sarah says that there may have been separation, yet Sarah's laugh or chuckle may have some degree of the influence that Sarah had. I hope that's correct. But just that word tent, it means that there's some degree of separation.
Okay. Thank you, Joe.
And that's true. What I see is that Sarah laughed because of the light here, right? And Abram laughed out of jubilation. He was glad to hear that he was going to have a son.
Okay. I'll tell you what I see, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong. What I look at is in verse 10. And Sarah was listening at the tent door, which was behind him. That's the latter part of that verse. Abraham and Sarah were balanced, as we discussed prior. Balance meaning that there was no domination of feminine and masculine energy. They were one and did whatever was necessary. And we talked about that before, that, looking at it from the perspective of a marriage, if she is better with the finances, let her have the finances. If you are better with dressing the kids or doing homework, then that's what you do. And I'm just throwing some examples out there. But each one takes the role that they're the best in. And from what I can see in the scriptures, as far as in the Old Testament, I see them as having a balanced relationship. I look at this last part here, and behind him, I look at that definition of helpmate. It means to not only to encircle and protect, it talks about to stand against and oppose, which means that she is not to agree on everything that he said. I want to buy a $400,000 house, and she's saying, "What is wrong with you? We can't afford that. We're not going to do that." That sort of thing. So I look at this, and what I see is she did not protect him in that manner. I see it a little different than what Pastor was saying. I think when he says, when Abraham says, in verse 18 of chapter 7, and Abraham said to God, "Oh, that Ishmael may live before thee." In other words, he didn't have understanding at that time. He's saying, wouldn't it be okay to use Ishmael? Can we use Ishmael for this thing? So he, in his vulnerable state, was not protected by her, because she laughed as well, as instead of taking a different stance in that and saying, "Okay, I don't see this. I don't, but I support it." And I may not be saying that right, but I don't. What I'm saying is, I don't see how she hedged him in and surrounded and protected him in this regard. And to me, at that instance, there was no balance. Help me out, somebody, or if somebody don't see it that way, let me hear it. because this has been, I've heard this preached that she sinned. I don't quite see it as a sin. I see it as going back to the oneness and uniqueness that they were. The other way you could look at this and say there is oneness here, because she did laugh along with him. But hers was addressed and his was not.
And I don't think hers was addressed because it was a sin. His was not a sin because, quite frankly, if we look at what a sin is, it is totally different than anything we've ever been taught.
Yes.
So I don't think that comes into play at this moment at all. What I do think comes into play is that the newness of the change in who they are. Keep in mind their names have just been changed, and their thoughts were now in a different place than what they were from the beginning. Sarah had never in her life known of anyone her age to give birth. Abraham, by the same token, culturally was looking at that. I don't have an heir, and he didn't care. He didn't even give any thought to whether or not it could be. What he thought about is, now I'm going to have an heir. And in that regard, I do think that they were on two different pages. However, I see that also from a spiritual perspective, that when you think about the idea, son simply means builder or someone who erects or constructs something. When we look at it spiritually, I think what we're being shown here is that when we are given direction by the universe, by our Creator, to move in a direction and bring into existence the idea of understanding who we are spiritually, I do believe that that is saying to us there are times when you won't be in agreement with it within yourself or without. Example, how many times have you struggled with what you see the truth to be? I know for myself, a zillion times I've had to go back and read it again for the first time because it's so ingrained in me what it's supposed to be saying, even though I knew that it was saying something different. So, and so when I was said to other people, it may have not been physical laughter, but I heard a lot of, sure, you're right, in a very, not negative, but sarcastic manner. And I've heard it doesn't take all that so many times until it's nauseating. However, it doesn't mean that that she was against him. It was simply that she did not buy into what was being said because of her previous experiences.
If you look at what Abraham said, and I'm reading from the Messenger, while he was flat on his face, he laughed, thinking, can a 100-year-old man father a son? That's verse 17. Can Sarah at 90 years have a baby? Then in chapter 18, verses 11 on, Abraham and Sarah were old by this time, very old. Sarah was far past the age of her having babies. Here's the kicker, 12. Sarah laughed within herself. An old woman like me get pregnant with this old man of a husband? She's saying the same thing. She's thinking the same thing that Abraham was thinking. The difference is when she was asked right out, why'd you laugh? Why did Sarah laugh at me? Sarah lied and said, I didn't laugh. Abram didn't respond to that. He just simply said, oh, keep Ishmael alive. So the issue was that, she denied what she was thinking. That's all. What if she had said, you're right, I laughed because I was just thinking about being older and my husband being old. But I know that you are Yahweh and anything's possible. What if she had done that? But the other thing, she just lied. And so That's where I saw the two. She denied it.
Okay.
Well, this is Evelyn. At least Sarah did laugh. I think I would have cried. So kudos to Sarah and Abraham. I'm just joking. That's so funny for the Sunday.
Ha ha ha.
I agree with you, Evelyn.
The promise though is the what am I trying to say? The promise is the catalyst for the covenant. So yeah, and it just that the childbearing is the reward, and not just a child, because God understood, and I agree with what you guys are saying. I just think okay, God understood, because He tells in chapter 17, verse 19, that His name should be called Isaac. He says that to Abraham, which says that God understood that Abraham laughed. It just kind of caught me, and I guess it's one of those things that just kind of got my attention.
I think God has a sense of humor. He said, "Okay, you're laughing now. Well, we're gonna call your son laughter, because you really are gonna laugh when this baby is born. I mean, and that laughter would be a laughter of joy,
Of celebration.
The laughter now, yeah, and celebration. So, okay, call him laughter. That's fine with me. But you're gonna have a baby."
You hear that, Evelyn?
Right. What you say, Pastor?
So you hear that, don't you? No matter what, there's a baby coming.
I could cry or laugh, huh?
Yep.
Thank you, Pastor Reverend Richard.
This is Vermel. I have a question. Is there a relationship and similarity but difference between what Sarah and Abraham, what happened between Sarah and Abraham in terms of Abraham brought back the balance between him and Sarah by saying, yes, you did lie. He didn't go along with her untruth at that moment. Versus when when Eve came to Adam about the apple, Adam went along with, he pointed his finger at Eve and didn't really tell the truth when God asked him about eating from the apple. Is that the duality between the two situations? One brought balance, the other one maintained unbalance, unrightness?
Pastor Reverend Richard. Did we lose him?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. I was saying that it wasn't an apple, it was self-deception. I say that for me, not because I don't know that you know better, because we've talked about it before, but for the benefit of those who know for the first time. When it comes to whether or not these two are related, I do believe that everything in the scriptures is related. And because I have not looked at those events in depth, I will refrain from responding to that at this time, because I don't I would have to do a word search to make sure that the language is the same in terms of what they're talking about. Now, I do understand that when the incident in the garden took place, that was actually self-deception, as opposed to what Sarah is dealing with at this juncture. Because go ahead.
No. When you're finished explaining that, could you go back about the apple comment so I make sure I don't make that mistake again?
It's not. There's nothing in the scripture that says it was an apple. That came from the seminary. The people who were actually introduced it as an apple because they were afraid to say that somebody had intercourse to produce a child or to find pleasure in that. And what they were missing is that it had nothing to do with either one of them. It really had more to do with self-deception than it did with somebody being intimate with a doggone snake. So the idea of the apple was put in place of that, that's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Which is actually an abomination to the scriptures themselves. Since I said that, let me go further with that and say that I do not understand for the life of me why is it that people, especially folk in church, are so hung up on being adverse to the act of intercourse and making it such an awful thing when there's nowhere in the world for anyone else to be without it. So I think that we should look beyond those mediocre interpretations of the scripture and make sure that we engage in what they're really saying without regard to trying to say, feelings or maintain some kind of integrity, religious integrity. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good morning, Ron. This is Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
Good morning. I've been waiting to ask this question because I'm listening to the discussion, and I don't want to take us away from the discussion, but we keep talking about the importance of the covenant and understanding things that happen as a result of being in a covenant. And one of the things I've always been puzzled by, and because I understand that this is a symbolism of something else. When you talked about there had to be a blood sacrifice, and we know that the sacrifice was cut into pieces, and it speaks of God himself walking through the pieces to establish the covenant. What is that symbolism of God walking through the pieces? I mean, I guess I'm asking how, and what does that really mean?
I have looked at that in the past, and the way I have seen that is that it's speaking to the fractured aspects of our lives, and when it says that Abram was put to sleep and God moved through, walked through between the pieces, it's speaking of the idea of our making promises that we are weak as these beings who have separated ourselves mentally from our Creator, and the Creator said that it would go walk between those on behalf of us, so that we would not it would not have to put us to death as a result of our breaking the covenant. And that was simply for our deliverance. So that means to us to this day that the sacrifice for our fragmented lives has already been accomplished by the one who created us, which means that Jesus did not die for our sins. as we said earlier, Jesus died because of our entanglements. And if you look at the sacrifices, they are different things. And if you look at the names or look at what those different names of the things, like the pigeon or the animal, what they represent, you will see that they indeed represent different aspects of our personalities or the characteristics, rather, of our lives. I hope that helped you.
It does, and I just want clarity. I just want to be sure. So you're saying that the separated pieces of the sacrifices, or the carcasses, so to speak, is symbolic of the brokenness and not being whole because we don't see who we are. And the covenant is a way of entering into a place of protection so that we will not be destroyed in our brokenness, and we how do I want to say this? Entering into that covenant from a place of brokenness and until we get to a point of understanding what it means to be whole and know who we are. The covenant is never broken, but it protects us until we see and understand. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that we're being protected by the one who we entered the covenant with, even though we did not go between the pieces. In other words, we entered the covenant because based upon the one who offered the covenant actually solidifying the covenant.
Okay, thank you.
Reb or Miss Kathy or anyone, my interpretation of a covenant means that there's some kind of agreement. And a covenant is different to me now than a contract. People that I am in covenant with, if they say something, I don't necessarily have to say, I need you to put that in writing. There's some kind of history there where they bond with me. With others, if they say something, I'll probably play dumb and say, could you please text me what you said, because I'm in a meeting. I may not even be in a meeting. I just need to have their word that I can have as a reference if it goes south. So is a covenant, what's the difference between a covenant, a contract? Is that a fair question, Ms. Kathy, or what? Or not a fair question?
It's a difference.
It's a fair question, but I'm going to let Pastor answer it.
A difference between a contract and a covenant. A contract is a legal document between men that can be challenged in court and broken. A covenant is an agreement that's it's a spiritual agreement between individuals based upon blood. It is secured with your life, as opposed to a contract being secured through the judicial system. So a covenant is far more binding than a contract is.
Oh, thank you, Rev.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? So, what we have done the last couple of days is we are talking about this journey that we're on. We're talking about, and we look at it from the perspective that we're on, and not just looking at it from something we're reading out of the book and saying this is something that may have happened. We look at the perspective that this is a spiritual thing, and the journey that we're on is spiritual, and that's why we point out the sides of this that is spiritual and try to look at what is spiritual and what is practical. For example, the circumcision, we talk about that the practical side of that being for cleanliness and purification. And then when you look at it from the spiritual perspective, that takes on a different meaning, that purification portion of it. And Barbara went into the oneness and of the masculine and feminine energy and the balance that is brought about from why the man was the masculine energy is the one that was caught on. And so we look at that and we hopefully can see ourselves individually on this journey and see and feel the masculine and feminine energy in each and every one of us, and feel how we are growing into balance the more we understand, and how those two things feed off each other. The more you embrace that balance in you, the masculine and the feminine energy, the more awareness that you are gained, and those two things coincide with each other. So we not only move closer to knowing self, but you move closer as a group on this journey, and we move closer in the universe, meaning one with our Creator, and understanding the larger scope of things and the responsibility that we have being co-creators, meaning it is the will of God that all men be saved. That too becomes our will. That too becomes your will individually and our will as a group. So those are the things that direction that we move in as we embark on this journey. Any questions or comments as to where we are, or about anything else for that matter?
Ron, I want to thank everyone. Yesterday, I was out of it in terms of sheer exhaustion, and I'm most appreciative that you picked up at the last minute and facilitated. I appreciate that. In addition to that, I want to say tomorrow is a holiday, and we won't meet on tomorrow. We will see each other again on the phones on Saturday of next week, and then we will continue through Monday. Okay?
Thank you. And once again, before we close, I just want to say thank everybody for your questions. That's what feeds the line, feeds and drives us forward. So thanks again. And if that's it, no more questions or comments. I see you next week. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ron. Y'all have a good time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Everybody have a good day.
Have a good holiday tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.